The first time my father told me I wasn't part of the family anymore, he didn't even look me in the eyes. He simply pointed toward the front door and said, "Take your dog and leave." The only thing I owned was an old backpack, a worn-out pickup truck that barely started, and my 12-year-old golden retriever, Cooper. I was 30 years old. No savings. No job. No home. The strange part? I wasn't crying because I had lost the house. I was crying because Cooper kept wagging his tail, thinking we were going on another adventure. He had no idea our entire lives had just fallen apart. My name is Ethan Brooks. I grew up on a large family ranch outside Bozeman, Montana. My grandfather built that ranch with his own hands after returning from the Korean War. He believed in honesty, hard work, keeping your word. My father believed in something else: money, power, control. After Grandpa passed away, Dad inherited everything. Within months, he transformed our family into a business. Everything became about profit. He sold land that had been in our family for generations. He fired employees who had worked there for decades. He even cut down hundreds of old trees because developers offered him more money. I couldn't watch it happen. Every argument between us became worse. "You don't understand business," Dad would shout. "No," I replied. "I understand loyalty." He laughed. "Loyalty doesn't pay bills." Maybe he was right. But greed destroys families. The final fight happened on a cold October afternoon. Dad had signed papers to sell the oldest part of the ranch to a luxury resort company. That land included Grandpa's cabin, the place where my mother taught me to fish, where Cooper chased squirrels every summer, where every Christmas photo had been taken. I begged him not to sell it. He looked at me without emotion. "If you love that cabin so much, you can buy it." I laughed. He wasn't joking. I told him Grandpa would be ashamed. He slapped the contract onto the table. "Then leave." I looked at Cooper, picked up my backpack, walked away. Not a single family member stopped me. The first winter was brutal. I slept inside my truck, sometimes in church parking lots, sometimes near national parks, sometimes at truck stops. Whenever I bought food, Cooper always ate first. If I had $10, $7 went toward dog food. 3 bought instant noodles. There were nights when I wondered if my father had been right. Maybe kindness really was weakness. Then one morning, everything changed. A small construction company needed temporary workers rebuilding cabins after a wildfire. The owner, Mike Sullivan, noticed I always arrived early, never complained, worked until sunset. One afternoon he asked, "Ever thought about starting your own business?" I laughed. "I can't even afford new tires." He smiled. "Neither could I 20 years ago." Mike became more than a boss. He became family. He taught me construction, leadership, negotiation, customer service. More importantly, he taught me confidence. Every paycheck I saved, every extra dollar mattered. Within 3 years, I had my own small renovation company. Within 5, we had 50 employees across Montana. We specialized in restoring historic cabins instead of tearing them down. People loved preserving history. Business exploded. For the first time in my life, I wasn't surviving. I was building something meaningful. Cooper grew older. His muzzle turned white. His walks became slower. But every morning, he still waited beside the truck, ready for work. Every employee knew him. Customers asked about him before asking about me. He wasn't just a dog. He was the heart of the company. One day, a local newspaper published an article titled, "The Dog That Helped Build a $1 Million Business." The story went viral. National television invited us for an interview. Suddenly, people across America knew who Cooper was. 3 weeks later, my phone rang. It was my sister. I hadn't heard her voice in 5 years. She sounded nervous. "Dad wants to see you." I stayed silent. The ranch is in trouble. Apparently, the luxury resort project had failed. The developers abandoned it halfway through construction. Dad had borrowed millions. The bank was preparing foreclosure papers. Everything was collapsing. He needed help. I drove back to the ranch. Cooper sat beside me exactly like he had 5 years earlier. Only now, instead of driving an old broken truck, we arrived in a brand new black pickup. The ranch looked abandoned. Broken fences, dead grass, empty barns. The place had lost its soul. Dad looked 20 years older. He stared at Coop, her first, then at me. I made mistakes. I nodded. "You did. I need your help." I looked across the land Grandpa loved. "This ranch doesn't belong to us." He looked confused. "It belongs to our family's history." The bank agreed to sell the property through auction. Everyone expected a large corporation to buy it. Auction day arrived. Developers, investors, real estate companies. The bidding climbed higher. Then, I raised my paddle. The room went silent. Dad looked shocked. I wasn't buying the ranch for revenge. I was buying it to save Grandpa's dream. My final bid won. The ranch belonged to me. The next morning, I gathered every former employee Dad had fired years earlier. Some had retired. Others worked nearby. I invited every single one back. We're rebuilding together. Many cried. One old ranch hand hugged Cooper before hugging me. He whispered, "Your grandfather would be proud." That meant more than every dollar I'd ever earned. Months later, the ranch reopened, not as a luxury resort, but as a non-profit historical ranch where families could learn about farming, horseback riding, and conservation. School children visited every week. Veterans found peace there. Families spent weekends making memories. Exactly as Grandpa always wanted. Cooper passed away one peaceful autumn afternoon beneath the giant oak tree near Grandpa's cabin. He wasn't alone. Every employee stood quietly around him. Children placed flowers beside him. Veterans saluted him. I buried my best friend overlooking the mountains we had crossed together. On his stone were simple words. He never gave up on me. Sometimes, the people who abandon you think they've ended your story, but they haven't. They've only written the first chapter. The rest is yours to write. And sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't making people suffer. It's building a life so full of purpose that their hatred no longer matters.